So let me ask you a question. Do you know what the difference between head voice and mix is? As far as that goes, do you know what the difference between head voice and falsetto is? Well, quickly I'm going to tell you the difference between head voice and falsetto is compression. How much of the chord is actually making a seal and how the vocal cord is actually making that seal. It has a lot to do with the difference between what head voice is and what falsetto is. And I think quite often people confuse that and think that head voice, a very light head voice, is actually falsetto. So if I was up here, got a vibrato, I've got a little compression. Am I in my head voice or am I singing falsetto? Interesting. Well, I tell you that I'm singing in my head voice right there. And it's very easy to do. Now, as I move down from my head voice, what I just did there was staying in my head voice all the way down, one octave lower than the high tenor C I started on, down into one octave lower. But now, what's mix? Well, mix is a combination of your head voice and your chest voice characteristics of both of those places, utilizing resonators both in your mouth and your nasal resonator to start to get a sound that mixes between the two sounds. But is there a different physical condition? Yes, there's a different physical condition between head voice and mix. Now, if I was to come down the same scale and move into my mix, and I go, well, and I was blatant about that. I did that purposely. I tried not to blend that very much so you could hear the difference in the sound. Now, I moved from my head voice, and as I was coming down on the note G, I went into my mix. Let's put a K in the front of that ooh vowel sound, just to get the chords to come together a little tighter and go. Now I shifted into my mix again, and I got that coo just to bring the chords together a little tighter, to get a little bit more compression on my chords. And by doing that, it's a little easier to get the sound of my head voice blending with the sound of my mix. If I continue down from here, coo, well then I've moved down from my mix easily down into my chest voice, but still keeping everything balanced. Now that's a little tip for you to start to understand a little bit more, but if you don't really know how to get into your head voice, or know what head voice is, or know what mix is, or know the difference between your mix and your chest, which people seem to confuse as well, don't have the time to put it all in here right now, but the same thing holds true for female voices, but it's placed in a different part of your range, and I think in another YouTube clip I'll discuss that when I get to talking about where the female breaks and bridges are, and do the same thing. But for guys, right now, guys, what I'm going to ask you to do is this. I'm going to start right here on C and ask you to sing an ooh vowel sound. And first, sing it all in your head voice. Here we go. Now, second time coming down, right there. Can you go into your mix if you know what mix is? So let's try it. Just some quick tips for you. But obviously, if you really want to be serious about this, come on over to totallyvocals.com. An immense amount of content from beginning to very advanced levels of developing your voice. totallyvocals.com.